أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, inshallah, please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening and the return of our beloved 12th Imam, let's take a moment and to recite another loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajjil farajam. I hope everyone is doing well, inshallah, and I hope that these days and nights after the month of Ramadan have been going well. So as we normally do on our Thursday nights, we will go through some of the ahadith that we have chosen for tonight, and also through some of the rulings that we normally cover. And of course this week, because it has been such a difficult week, it has been such a tumultuous week, it has been such a volatile week, it has been a week that all of us have been shaken to our core, really. Inshallah, today we will be discussing the concept of justice, what Islam has to say in this regard, a little bit touching on just some of the ahadith and understanding what Islam's opinion is in this regard, just to be able to have a better picture. And I know, and I'm saying this inshallah as we go through today's topic. As you all know, this past week we've been seeing a lot of things on the news as it relates to the African American community and the racial issues that we have in this country. And we will be sending out a statement very shortly, inshallah, about the whole issue. We will be having a youth session on this topic coming up in a couple of weeks, so we will be addressing it in a multitude of ways, really, because it is something that deals with the reality of the society that we live in, and it is something that we definitely need to mention what Islam's opinion is about this issue and what our duty is in this regard. One thing that we can say for sure is that anyone who sees the type of things that you see on the news these days, anyone who sees the events that took place that started everything, and also the events that have been taking place, the incidents that have been taking place in this country for a very, very long time. And of course we know that it's not something that is confined to the United States, but because we live here, of course, we are dealing with it as it relates to the United States. The incidents that have been taking place for a very long time, of course, these are very sickening, and it's very difficult, really, to watch when a human being reaches a point where you cannot even call him a human being anymore. A human being reaches a point where he is willing to kill another human being at his own hands and watch him die in front of him and turn unresponsive in front of him. It really baffles me in terms of what low point a human can reach in terms of their morality and in terms of what type of human being they are, that they could ever do such a thing. It's very, very, it's even difficult to understand and difficult to digest. However, having said that, we know that this is, of course, a real issue. It's a real issue. As odd as it might sound, that such a simple thing would be clear enough for some people to understand, it seems as though it's not. And of course, the African American community has been dealing with this issue for a very long time, and of course now there's being more light shed on this issue, and people are responding to it in a way that they probably have not responded to it any other time. And so this is, that's the good side of it. That's hopefully will bring some awareness to this issue and will bring about some reform. But of course, at the end of the day, the pain, the difficulty, the societal effects of these types of acts is something that is there and is very real in our communities. So inshallah, tonight I'm going to be talking about it in a more general sense. When we have the youth session in soon, inshallah, the Dallas youth session, we'll be talking about it more in detail. And of course, the statement will be going out today. And it's really an issue that we all have to ask ourselves: how can we learn more about it? How can we educate ourselves about this topic more? Number one. And number two, what are the things that we can do to help in this regard? And I'll just say this before I move on, that there are short-term steps that someone can take in this regard. And then there are long-term steps that we can take in this regard. And both of them are important, of course, right? The short-term steps might be, just taking a stance, voicing your opinion, letting other people know that you don't agree with certain things. The long-term steps go way beyond this. The long-term steps look at how you can elevate a class of society that has been disenfranchised, that has been given a whole lot less resources compared to other classes of society, compared to other races in society, and see how you can elevate them within the society that we live in. So it's not just a matter of dealing with this issue and worrying about this issue this week. No, it's about how can you play a role moving beyond that. And alhamdulillah, there are a number of sessions that are happening across North America right now that you can tune into to learn more about this topic and learn how we can help, inshallah. And of course, these are things that are important in Islam. Sometimes we have this question and people ask this question of whether Islam gives importance to this issue. And I'm always baffled by that question, because we have so many hadith, and we'll talk about this today, that talk about just the idea of being someone who's an ally for those who are oppressed. So if you have the power and the ability, and all of us do to different extents and to different degrees, then of course Islam expects you to take a step in this regard. And as we will go through the ahadith, when it comes to being an ally for the oppressed, when it comes to helping those who others are oppressing, the ahadith don't really mention anything about religion. They don't really mention about whether this person is Muslim or not, right? There might be some ahadith that speak about your fellow Muslim brother and sister, and then you have other ahadith that don't even mention that. And so what you understand from Quran and hadith is that whether this person does not share your faith or does share your faith, it doesn't make a difference really. What really matters is whether they fall under this category of individuals who are oppressed. And if they do fall under that category, then you have a duty, to the extent of your power, to the extent of your ability, to take the steps that you can take. And like I said, part of it is educating yourself. Part of it, of course, is taking a stance. And in the long term, part of it might even be, as it relates to our own communities, is something that we need to discuss, inshallah. As it relates to our own communities, what is it that we can do within our own communities, right? Because this idea of racism, it has different layers, it has different levels. And of course, what we saw in this past week, particularly with this case and the other cases that we have heard about, it's really the highest levels, it's the most extreme levels, right? But then at the lower levels, right, the lighter levels, those are levels that we have to be careful that we are never guilty of. And that takes self-reflection, and it takes observation, and it's important to think about how we go about things as well. So we'll be talking about those as well. As it relates to today, in today's topic, inshallah, I'll be talking about some of the ahadith that we have when it comes to the idea of justice, just so we can digest what's going on a little bit better and understand what's going on a little bit better. And then, like I said, we will have to ask ourselves how we can contribute in the long term. The short term, and I've always said this and I will say this, that those who are trying to bring about change and reform, which would include you and me, the success of any movement that wants to bring about reform and change, the success of that movement will always fall back on the commitment of the people in that movement to the long-term steps that they are going to take. The short-term steps are important, but a lot of people will be willing to take the short-term steps. It's the long-term steps that we really have to see both as it relates to ourselves and within the society. People who consider themselves, advocates of an issue like this, are they also committed to the long-term commitment that it takes as well? Right? And you see famous people, you see every organization out there at this point voicing their support. But how many of these organizations are really going to be willing, when it comes to the time in terms of the long-term approach, how many of them are going to be committed in the long-term approach? How many people who are in places of authority are going to be committed to this issue in the long term? That's really what will gauge and what will determine the success of this movement as well as any other movement. It's all about the long term. And of course, what we see right now is the short term and the fervor that's there and the emotions and the passions, which is great. But then if the long term, if it's not backed up with the long term, then of course, will it be as effective, And that's not with regards to this movement in particular. No, any movement is really like that. And so we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that hopefully those who have that ability, that they're committed also to the long-term aspect of it. As it relates to us, as it relates to our community, we have to ask the same question, of course. We have to ask what are those steps that we have to take that relates to us that we could do in the long term as well. What are those things that are part of our culture sometimes that go against some of these values that we stand for? And there are those that do go against these values, right? Now, it may not be to the level where, the extreme levels that we saw of brutality that we saw against a person who can barely breathe. It may not be to that point, but it could be lower, lighter levels of it as well that might feed into it sometimes. So that's something that we have to ask ourselves, and as we move on, we'll be talking about this issue more and more. I'm personally not the type of person who, when issues like this come up, will just focus everything, all of their energy on this topic for 1 week and then just leave it. That's not how you're supposed to go about these topics, right? When the topic comes up, it is a moment of reflection and it's a moment of thought, and then in the long term, you have to be constantly reminded of this. You have to be constantly committed to it and see what value you can bring to this issue and to this movement. Okay, so we will be doing that, inshallah. I just want to clarify that. Like I said, we'll be talking about this issue from a multitude of different aspects and perspectives. And for those who are interested, there are multiple panels that are taking place these days, and you can make sure to tune into those that will guide us even more as to how we can help in this regard. Both in the short term and also in the long term as well. Because like I said, the latter is probably even more important than the former. Okay. Now these ahadith that I wanted to share with you is just some of these ahadith that actually relate to this topic. The first one is from Abu Hamza Thumali. Abu Hamza Thumali, of course, is that narrator of that famous hadith, or that famous dua, I should say, that we recited during the month of Ramadan. He says, I asked the first imam, or the first imam was asked in my presence. He was asked, which of those sins are there that when someone does them, the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes quickly? Some sins that we commit, the punishment may not come immediately. It might take a while for the punishment to show up. Sometimes you find that you might commit a sin and life might just go on. Nothing apparently changes in your life. But he says, I asked the first imam, I said, what is that sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rushes to punish the individual who has committed that sin more and faster than any other sin out there? He said this, أَيُّ ذَنْبٍ أَعْجَلُ عُقُوبَةً لِصَاحِبِهِ. Which sin is it that brings about the punishment of the one who's done it faster, right? Quicker than any other sin? And the Imam said this, فَقَالْ مَنْ ظَلَمَ مَنْ لَا نَاصِرَ لَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. The one who oppresses, the one who takes away the rights, the one who violates the rights of the one who has nobody to turn to except for who? Except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has no one to back him up except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll finish the hadith and then I'll comment on it. وَجَاوَرَ النِّعْمَةَ بِالتَّقْصِيرِ. The second one is the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses him with a blessing, And instead of taking this blessing and using it in the way he's supposed to use it, no, he uses it in the wrong way, right? He doesn't take proper advantage of this blessing. That's number 2. وَاسْتَطَالَ بِالْبَغْيِ عَلَى الْفَقِيرِ. And the third one is the one who consistently, he oppresses the one who is deprived, the one who is dealing with poverty, the one who doesn't have the wealth, the resources to stand up for himself. Because of that, he uses his wealth, he uses his authority to oppress this individual. And it's interesting because when you look at this incident that took place, this is exactly what you see. And when I say this incident, of course, this is just representation of multiple other incidents, right? A pattern. And this is why we find the reaction that we find from people today. It's because this is not one incident. It's a pattern that many of us have been hearing for a very long time. And of course, now we are witnessing in a lot more of a clearer light today than we were maybe 6 months ago or 5 years ago or whatever the case might be. It's a pattern. What you find in this pattern is all 3 of these. You find a person who is oppressing another individual who has nowhere else to turn to, right? It's really painful when you look at what happened. Number 2 is that you look at a person who has blessings that instead of making proper usage of them, he is misusing them. And number 3, he's a person who is wealthy with power and authority, whereas the person that he is oppressing does not have that. In all of these incidents, brothers and sisters, when you go and look back, not all of them, but most of them, what you find as part of this pattern of this brutality that's been taking place, what you find is the oppressing of those who are also dealing with elements of poverty. Why? Because when the issue of race is coupled up with the issue of poverty, then you have nowhere else to turn to. See, if you're a person who's wealthy, if you're a person who can use his wealth and his money to be able to gather that support for himself, then of course, still people can oppress you, still people can violate your rights because of your race, but at least you stand a little bit of a chance. At least you have somewhere to go to. But when you couple that with poverty, which is what you find in this case and in a lot of other cases, then it just becomes impossible. Because at that point, you have nowhere else to turn to. And the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib is saying, this one is the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sees one of his creatures oppressing another of his servants in this manner, this person is the one whose punishment will come very quickly, whose punishment will come immediately. Okay. That's the first hadith I wanted to mention. Now, because this is such a critical situation that we have in Islam, we have recommendations from our Ahlul Bayt to make sure that somebody, when he sees something of this nature, and he has the ability to stand, and he has the ability to help, and he has the ability to bring awareness, or whatever the case might be, to make sure that he does that. Take a look at this hadith from the Prophet. It's very beautiful. He says, Man akhadha lil mazlumi min al-zalim. Whoever takes away from a zalim for a mazlum, he takes back the rights of a mazlum from a zalim. Okay. Whoever does this, what is his reward? Kana ma'i fil jannati musahiba. This person, he will be my companion. He will be the person that I will spend time with while I am in heaven, while I am in Jannah. The Prophet himself is saying this. What does that mean? That shows the status of someone who takes steps. Even if someone takes these steps and he's not successful, still this reward is there for them, right? Or maybe there are those who have this yearning in their heart that they want to do something. For whatever reason, they don't have the ability to. Just by having this yearning, the Prophet is saying, this person is going to be there with me in heaven. Beyond that, he continues. This is another hadith. This is hadith Qudsi from Prophet Dawood, a conversation between Prophet Dawood and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, Ya Dawood, innahu laysa min abdin yu'ina madhluman. There is no servant of ours who assists a person who has been oppressed. أو يمشي معه في مظلمته. Or the one who he's not able necessarily to bring about change, he can't necessarily do anything about it, but at least he is able to walk with this person as he goes through this difficulty. In other words, he is able to comfort this individual. He's able to console this individual as he is going through this difficulty, as his rights are being taken. At least he stands with him. At least he walks with him. This person, أو يمشي معه في مظلمته إلا أثبت قدميه يوم تزول الأقدام. Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make his steps firm on the day when the steps are shaky. When are the steps shaky? When is it that someone's feet are shaking? When they want to pass across the bridge of Sirat. When they want to pass and the hellfire is down below. They want to move towards heaven. The Quran says, يَوْمَ تَزِلُّ فِيهِ الْأَقْدَامِ. It's used in the Quran, used in Hadith as well. The day where the steps are shaky. Meaning that this person, he wants to move towards heaven, but he won't be able to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَثْبَتَ قَدَمَيْهِ. He will make sure that this person, his steps, his feet are firm on that day when all the other steps and all the other feet are shaking. Who? The one who, if he has the power and the ability, to whatever extent that he does. For some it might be a whole lot. For some it might be very little. Doesn't matter. To whatever extent that they have that ability. If he is able to help a person who is oppressed, or at the very least, he is able to comfort. He is able to console. He's able to give a little bit of mental relief, emotional relief to the person who has been oppressed. And as I'm going through this, you find there are people who can do a lot. There are people who can do a little bit. And there are people who can do, somewhere in the middle maybe. And there are people who may not be able to do anything, but at the very least they can acknowledge and understand and educate themselves about the issue and comfort those who are going through these issues. So any of these will count really. Moving on from that, based on this, when the hadith says that you are to help those who are oppressed, and you see in none of these ahadith does it mention if this person is Muslim, he's not Muslim, none of that matters. Let alone the fact that in this particular case, many of them are Muslims, right? But as I mentioned again, that's not what matters, because these ahadith, they don't mention whether they're Muslim, not Muslim. No, it says someone who's oppressed. So if you find someone who's oppressed, then these ahadith would apply to them. Okay. Moving on from that, the sixth Imam, he says, there are three types of dua, and we've touched on this before for a separate topic. There are three types of dua that this dua will definitely be heard by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Three types of dua that do not get stuck in the barriers between the creation and the creator. Three types of dua that when they are uttered, they will make their way towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In my words, they will cut through the seven heavens and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hear them. What are these three du'as? The first one has to do with parents. When a child who does good to his parents prays, or when the parent prays for him, that's the first one. The sixth Imam says, ثَلَاثُ دَعَوَاتٍ لَا يُحْجَبْنَ عَنِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. There are three types of prayer. They will never be veiled from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to them. The first one, دعاء الوالد لولده إذا أبره ودعوته عليه إذا عقه. The dua of a parent for their child if the child is doing something good, and إذا عقه, and when the parent sits there and says, I don't want you as my child, right? They curse their child. Okay, both of these, the hadith is saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears it and responds to it. The first one. The second issue that he brings up has to do with helping a brother and sister who is in need. وَالرَّجُلٍ مُؤْمِنٍ دَعَى لِأَخٍ لَهُ مُؤْمِنٍ. A brother who calls for the help from another brother. And here it uses the word mu'min, right? So it's kind of alluding to the fact that it has to do with someone who might share your faith. Okay. But then when it moves on to number 3, you will find that the hadith doesn't mention anything about mu'min. It doesn't mention anything about this person sharing your faith or not. And therefore you understand that Quran and hadith are telling you it doesn't matter if this person shares your faith or not. What matters is whether they fall under this category of madhloom. Third category, وَدُعَاءُ الْمَظْلُومَ عَلَى ظَالِمِهِ. And when a madloom, when an oppressed individual, he prays against the one who oppressed him, عَلَى ظَالِمِهِ, his dua and his prayer will definitely be heard. And then this is the line that is there for us. وَدُعَاؤُهُ لِمَنْ انْتَصَرَ لَهُ. And his dua for the one who came to help him out. Intisar means when you assist somebody so that they are victorious in whatever they are trying to achieve. It says the dua of a madloom, of an oppressed individual, for the one who helped him when he was trying to take back his rights from the oppressor. And that applies to us as well. The verse of the Quran or the hadith is saying that if this person were to utter a dua, his dua would definitely be heard by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are, of course, just a small sample. We know that these sessions that we do normally, we cap them at 20 minutes and we're already at 25 minutes and I haven't covered the ahkam. But these are just essentially a sample of the ahadith that we have. And there are many, many more. Right? We've heard that amongst the wasiyats of our beloved Imam to his son was to the Hasanain. The wasiyah of Ali ibn Abi Talib to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, right? That make sure you are a support for those who are being oppressed and you're an enemy, right? And an obstructor, essentially, for those who oppress others. So there are many sayings that we have in Islam. We don't need to go through all of the sayings. We don't really need to discuss all of the sayings. That just shows that our duty in this regard is an important one. Again, to the best of our ability and to the best of, to the best extent of our ability. As it relates to what is happening in society, and then also as it relates to, as I mentioned at the beginning of our talk, those lower and lighter levels of this issue that we find in our communities as well. There's more to be said about this, inshallah, later on. Like I said, we don't want to take a short-term approach only, where this issue comes up, we talk about it 1 week and then we just leave it. No, inshallah, this is a topic that we are to talk about, we are to study, we are to educate ourselves about, we are to observe over time, because it's the long-term commitment to this issue that will really bring about change on a societal level and also as it relates to the level within our own community. So we will be talking about it even more as we move on, inshallah. Having said that, I want to, inshallah, for the next 10-15 minutes also talk about the ahkam that we have regarding salat. We were discussing salat. We said we went through ruku' and now we're going to move on to sajda, or we ended before ruku'. We said that right before you go to ruku', there is a moment where you are supposed to stand and your body is supposed to be calm. We said that this moment where you stand, your body is calm before you go to ruku', this is known as qiyam before ruku'. We said that not only is it wajib, it is a rukna in your prayer, which means that if I am reciting the surah, the second surah, and before I am done, I start moving towards my ruku', my salat is batil, even if I did that mistakenly, because it is a rukna to stop there for a second. Therefore, even if I do this mistakenly, it will mess up my prayer. When I am done with the qira'at, I have to stop for a second and pause for a second, and then I go down to ruku'. What is the idea of ruku'? Why do we do ruku'? Ruku' itself, from a literal perspective, the word ruku' means humility. Means when you show humbleness. And of course, when someone bows down in front of you, it is a form and a sign of humility and humbleness. In a hadith from the first Imam, he mentioned this very beautifully, and I'll just mention it very quickly, move on, because there might be some children who are listening, so I want to make sure they don't have a misunderstanding. But the hadith says that when you go to ruku', and the hadith says you are to extend your neck out, just like a servant would for his master. When you do this, the hadith says what you are saying, what this ruku' is symbolizing, is that, Ya Allah, amantu bik, I believe in you, walau dharabta unuqi, even if you were to take away my head. In other words, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never do such a thing. What the Imam is saying is that by all means, and to whatever extent you need me to serve you, I will serve you. Even if I have to give my life in your path, I will do that. So that's what ruku' symbolizes. It is the sheer display of humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, this is ruku'. After we get up from ruku', then we go to sajda, of course. A couple of points about sajda. First of all, of course, we know in sajda there are 7 different parts that have to be on the ground. That's number 1. Number 2 is that as it relates to the turba, there is no specific amount of your head that has to be on the turba. As long as people say this person put his head on the turba, then that counts as a sajda. Sometimes you go to sajda, you put your head on the turba, it's left, it's right, it's not aligned. It's wrong to lift your head without having said the dhikr, because that counts as your sajda. Okay, when you go down and you have control, but it's not aligned, you are not to lift your head and put your head again. That's not what you're supposed to do. As long as your head landed on the turba, people say this person put his head on the turba, then that means that your sajda has now commenced and you are to say the dhikr. That's the second point. The third point, and I am just going through these quickly, some of these points I will slow down to discuss a little bit more. Some of them I'll move by a little bit quicker. The third point is that when you go to sajda and you put your hand on the ground, as long as people say he put his hand on the ground, even if there's an obstacle, maybe a small little obstacle, that's not a problem. But there's a big obstacle, right? Let's say I have a, like I have a big pen, a big marker in my hand, and then I put my hand down. People would say there's something that's blocking his hand from being on the ground. But if I put my hand, for example, on a piece of cloth that's on the ground, people would say, no, he's putting his hand on the ground. So as long as there is no major obstacle and I'm putting my hand there, that should be fine in terms of sujood. The point that I want to take to elaborate on a little bit more, and this is a common misconception that we have, is this. One of the most common misconceptions that we have when it comes to the issue of sujood in particular is this, that a man who is in sujood, who is doing sajda, he is not allowed to put his elbows on the ground. If I could count how many times people have asked me this question, right, and if for each one of them I had $1, right, I would be a millionaire probably, because I've seen this asked so many times, and sometimes it's not even asked, people will say it and I will overhear it, or people will come to me and say so and so said this. Neither Ayatollah Sistani nor Ayatollah Khamenei, and as far as I know, the majority of our ulama do not have this ruling, that it is not allowed for you to put down your elbows in part of the sajda. No, it is mustahab for a man to not do that. Well, I don't remember if it's mustahab for them to not do that or makruh for them to do it, but let's just put it this way. It's better for a man not to do this, and for a woman, it's better for her to have her elbows on the ground. But would it invalidate your prayer? The answer is absolutely not. And in fact, I have this habit, I don't know if it's a good habit or not, that I always have my elbows on the ground, regardless. Okay, so having your elbows on the ground for a male, this does not invalidate the prayer, although it is a very, very common misconception that people have, that it does invalidate the prayer, and like I said, it does not. Okay. Having said that, while you are in sajda, if you want to move any of your body parts from the ground for just a second, that's not a problem. If your face is itching, you can take your hand and you can scratch your face if that's what you want to do. No problem, except for the turba. Turba and your head has to remain there. So if you have to lift it, then say your dhikr and then you lift it. Not that you lift it and you put it back down, because that will count as your sajda, and therefore you would have to say your dhikr while you are in sajda. Next ruling is that when you do sajda on something, obviously there cannot be a barrier between your head and the turba and the dirt or whatever it is that you're doing sajda on, which we will talk about in just a second. But the darkness that you find in some of the turbas, that's not a barrier. That's just the color that the dirt has taken on. So you don't have to scratch that off or get rid of that. Sometimes we see that. That's not necessary. All right. 2 more rulings that I will cover, or 1 more, and then the hadith that I want to cover. The next one is that if you go to sajda and the turba sticks to your head, you have to remove it from your head, put it on the ground for the next sajda. You are not to go back to sajda just like that. Having said that, in terms of what you can do sajda on, this is of course a question that a lot of people have. Can you do sajda, for example, on paper? Can you do sajda on a tissue? Can you do sajda on your thumb if you don't have something that you normally do sajda on? Or for those who have children, you can relate to this very well, that you start your salat and in the middle of your prayer, your 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, whatever the case may be, might come and pick up your torba and walk away. And you're there in the middle of prayer, you're trying to do a bunch of different, movements and send some, cryptic messages maybe to your spouse to get your torba back, but you may not be able to get your torba back. So what are you supposed to do in these situations? From the Shia perspective, and this is where in the Shia school of thought and in the Sunni school of thought, there is a difference of opinion. In the Shia school of thought, we are allowed to do sajda on anything that comes from the earth. Okay? But there is an exception within that you are allowed to do sajda on the earth or anything that comes from the earth as long as it is something that is not used to produce things that are either eaten or things that are worn. Okay? So along those lines, right, Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, there are some slight differences here, but what I'm mentioning is just to be on the safe side. When it comes to paper, when it comes to tissue, if it is paper or tissue that is made of cotton, it is not allowed to do sajda on it. If it's not like that, if it's made of fiber, for example, then it would be allowed to do sajda on that. So it just depends on whether this is something that is commonly worn and eaten or not. Okay. Why is this? Why is it that we have this ruling in Islam? And by the way, this is part of the reason why that we also have this issue when people go, for example, to Sunni majority countries, or even if you went to a Sunni masjid and you wanted to pray there, you would find that a lot of people there, they would be praying on the ground, right? And they would be doing sajda on a carpet. They would be doing sajda on something that may have been made of plastic or cotton or maybe the mix of both of those. And you find that within the Shia school of thought, in normal conditions, you are not allowed to do that. What is the reason for it? In Islam and in the Shia school of thought, we don't know the reason behind every single thing. Sometimes we do though. And the hadith that we have in this regard is very beautiful. So I'll be sharing this hadith and inshallah we'll be ending. This is mentioned in Ilalu Shara'i', and it is a hadith from the 6th Imam from his companion, famous companion, Hisham ibn Hakam, famous companion of the 6th Imam. Later on, when we get to around just two weeks from now, roughly 3 weeks from now, the shahadat of the 6th Imam, we will be talking about the student of the 6th Imam, inshallah. And Hisham ibn al-Hakam, قال قلت, he says, I was with the 6th Imam one day, and so I asked him, أبي عبد الله, قلت لأبي عبد الله, أخبرني عما يجوز السجود عليه وأما لا يجوز. Tell me what I can do sajda on, and what are those things that I cannot do sajda on. So the 6th Imam explained to him, قال السجود لا يجوز إلا على الأرض أو ما أنبتت الأرض. He said sujud is only allowed on earth or those things that come from the earth, إلا ما أكل أو لبس, except for those things that are worn or those things that are eaten. Now, of course, the things that come from earth, some of them can be worn and eaten directly. Some of them cannot be eaten and worn directly. They will have to go through a process in order for them to be able to turn into something that you can then wear or you can then eat, for example. Cotton is not something that you essentially wear when it's coming from a farm. It's a process that needs to take place on it so that then you can use it for whatever clothing that you would be wearing, right? So this covers even that situation. فَقُلْتُ لَهُ جُعِلْتُ فِدَاكَ. I said, O 6th Imam, can you tell me مَا الْعِلَّةُ فِي ذَلِكَ? Can you tell me what the reason for this is? Why is it that if it's something that's coming from the earth, why is it that I'm not allowed to do sajda on it if it's something that will be eaten or worn? He said this, قال لأن السجود هو الخضوع لله عز وجل. He said because the whole point of sajda, the whole point of going to sajda, prostrating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is khudu'. You're trying to show your humility, right? You're trying to show your humbleness. That you only worship Him, that you are humble, and that He is the only one that is worthy of worship. That's the point of sujood. Okay, we understand that. فَلَا يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَكُونَ عَلَى مَا يُؤْكَلْ وَيُلْبَسْ. Therefore, you're not supposed to do sujood on things that are worn or eaten because of this. لأن أبناء الدنيا عبيد ما يأكلون ويلبسون. Because those who don't worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they worship this world, they actually worship the things they wear and the things that they eat. the things they eat and the things that they wear are symbols of those things that stop them from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are icons. They are the things that represent them disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, worshipping something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it is like that, عَبِيدُ مَا يَأْكُلُونَ وَيَلْبَسُونَ وَالسَّاجِدُ فِي سُجُودِهِ فِي عِبَادَةِ اللَّهِ. While in reality, when you go to sujood, you are trying to worship who? Not this world, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of that, فَلَا يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَدَعَ جَبْهَتَهُ فِي سُجُودِهِ عَلَى مَعْبُودَ أَبْنَاءِ الدُّنْيَا. Therefore, when you go to sajda, you are not allowed to put your head on those things that the worshippers of this world use to worship this world. Which is what? The things that they eat and the things that they wear. As this is sixth Imam is explaining, why is it that in our sajda we are not allowed to use the things that we eat or wear to be part of our sajda? الَّذِينَ اغْتَرُّوا بِغُرُورِهَا وَالسُّجُودُ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ أَفْضَلُ. And when you do sajda on the earth, it is even better. لِأَنَّهُ أَبْلَغُ فِي التَّوَاضُعِ وَالْخُضُوعِ. Because it is the ultimate show and display of humility. It is the ultimate show and display of humbleness when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As opposed to doing sajda on something that can be worn or something that could be eaten. Because these are the things that the people of this world use to worship this world as opposed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, with that, I'll bring tonight's session to an end. And next week, inshallah, we'll continue with these rulings that we have from with regards to the topic of sujood. And then after that, we'll move on to the mubtilat of salat. What are those things that make the salat batil? Again, before I end, inshallah, I would just want to reiterate that with everything that's happening, we as followers of the Ahlul Bayt in particular, and in general as Muslims, we are to stand with our brothers and sisters. We are to take a stance, and we are to help to whatever degree is possible for us, to whatever extent is possible for us. For some people, it might mean something. For some other people, it might mean a different thing. But every person has to ask themselves the question. And as I mentioned, as time progresses, this is an issue that we have to talk about as it relates to our own communities. The issue of race. How does it affect us as a community? And what are those things that we have to be careful about? And what are those issues that we need to educate ourselves with regards to? Inshallah. With that, inshallah, I'll bring tonight's talk to an end. Let's take a moment to recite Surah Fatiha for all marhumin and marhumat of yours with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Please recite Surah Fatiha while I bring up Dua Kamal. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma inni as'aluka birahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay wa biquwwatika allati kaharta biha kulla shay wa khazalaha kullu shay wa zallalaha kullu shay wa bijabarutika allati ghalabta biha kulla shay وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل اسم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النكام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لكل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلحمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بكسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عزم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فاضح من البلاء أكلتا، وكم من إيثار وكيتا، وكم من مكروه دفعتا، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرتا. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وكسرت بي أعمالي، وكدأت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أمالي، وخدتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها. ومثالي يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجحالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي، من لي غيرك؟ أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أحوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستكيلا مستغفرا منيبا مكرا مذعنا مؤترفا. لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري، غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري، وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد مساكي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، وركة جلدي ودكة عزمي، يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي. هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا ربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيئ من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من أويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها وعلى قلوب طرفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمار حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سأت إلى أوطان تأبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مزئنة ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكسور يسير بقاؤه كثير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحكير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما من حائز الجوع أبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وحبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزجن عليك بين أهلها زجيج العاملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يزج إليك زجيج مؤمل رحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي. فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يهلكه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفها؟ أم كيف يتكلكل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتكه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وكزيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مكرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تكدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجلى ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالكزية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أو خفيته أو أزهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت ركيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستروه يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك ركي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا أليما بزري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك مأمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه مأولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جوارحي واشد على العزيمة جوانحي وحبلي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بالسوء فأرده ومن قادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك واقربهم منزلة منك وخسهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجود لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأكلني أسرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك كزيد على عبادك بإبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تعتأ من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابق النعم يا دافع النكم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يؤلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا صلوات اللهم صل